Okay, so I go on in English, and yes, it's a very elementary remarks about inverse problem for linear PDEs. It's a work in collaboration with Nicolas Sinder from Clermont-Ferrand and Diego Arrojo de Souza, which is in the room in Paris right now. And okay, the general context is the following one. Consider any linear partial differential equation, and you assume that well, you have an observation on the unique solution of these PDEs, and well, the linear inverse problem is very simple. You want, from this observation, you want to reconstruct the full solution, and possibly simultaneously the source as well. So the problem is very simple, linear, and my purpose is, of course, is of numerical nature. And the main aim of the talk is to try to convince you that if we use some space-time variational approach, we may obtain a robust approximation. So I consider, as usual, mainly the heat equation and the wave equation. And this approach is inspired from work on exact controllability. So I'm not going to talk about controllability, but the connection is very clear between this very simple linear inverse problem and exact controllability. Okay, so again, very elementary remarks. So let's start with the hyperbolic situation. So typically the wave equation posed in a bounded domain. Usual one, Dirichlet boundary condition with a source term. And so inverse problem one, well, from a distributed observation on small qt, define a small omega multiplied by the time interval, and I assume that the source is known. I want to reconstruct the full solution. So very simple example. And second problem. From a boundary observation, and on part of the boundary, I want to reconstruct the solution and possibly the source as well, simultaneously. Okay, so if I introduce an appropriate space, which is here, I introduce this operator P from Z to capital X cross L2. I define this operator. Well, inverse problem one is easily formulated as find y in capital Z such that Py is equal to the data. And assuming some unique continuation property, and if y ops is a good data, in the sense that y ops is a restriction to small qt of the solution of the PDEs, then of course this problem is well posed. There exists a unique solution. And okay, the most natural approach used in practice, I mean, to evaluate, to approximate numerically such problem is to use a least square technique. Well, this is used by 99% of people because in practice it works quite well. So the idea is to minimize the distance of the solution from the solution to the observation with respect to the initial data of the system, because the initial data fully characterize the solution of the PDEs. And so we may easily define a minimizing sequence in terms of an adjoint problem. And in practice, it works quite well. But the drawback at the numerical level, as far as I understand the things, it's not possible to minimize over finite dimensional subspace of the set of constraints. So the classical things, the trick is first to discretize the system, discretize the cost, and then minimize the discrete functionals. And again, it works quite well. But if we do that, if we want to prove some convergence result, we need at one point some uniform coercivity property. with respect to the approximation parameter. And okay, and this is doable, but it's not obvious. It's not obvious at all. Huh? So I don't want to I don't want to discretize the equation. I don't want to solve the equation actually. Before I may mention as well another approach, which is actually not so different from a least square approach, used in data assimilation. And this one consists in defining a dynamic, let's say y bar, which is asymptotically equivalent in time with the dynamic I want to reconstruct. And then using the reversibility of the PDEs, I can go backward and then reconstruct, approximate from y bar an approximation of y. But again, as far as I understand things, you need somewhere to discretize first and then to prove some uniform discrete observability property with respect to the approximation parameter. Okay, so the idea is really I don't want to discretize, and I want to keep y as the main variable of the problem. So without loss of generality in view of the linearity of the equation, I can take f is equal to 0. Okay, this is the working space, capital Z. And well, what I need is a unique continuation property, or even more, but it's not necessary actually. But I can assume a generalized observability inequality, which is true so I want to control the initial data in terms of the knowledge of y and small qt and the knowledge of ly. And well, we all know that for the wave equation, this is true in many situations. If t is large enough, if small omega satisfies some geometric optic condition. Okay, the interest is that then we can control we have a global estimate of the solution from the knowledge of y and small qt and the knowledge of L of y. And this kind of observability is known as well in the non-cylindrical situation where the domain small qt moves in time. So we check that in 1D, but it's true as well in higher dimension. Okay, so consider any eta small as small as you want, but strictly positive. And in order that this bilinear form define a scalar product, and so that I can define I can associate a norm to the scalar product and define an Hilbert space. And then I consider the same problem as before, except that now I minimize directly with respect to y. So I have a constraint, Ly is equal to 0 in capital X. And okay, for any eta positive, this one is a scalar product. So this problem is well posed, and the solution actually does not depend on eta. And from the observability inequality, of course, this problem is equivalent. The minimization of this quantity with respect to y is equivalent to the minimization with respect to the initial data. So the problems are equivalent, except that now I want to minimize with respect to y. And of course, for numerical purpose, it's interesting to add this zero term. Okay, Ly is 0, so I add 0. R is a non-negative parameter, which is important in the SECL at the numerical level. Okay, and this has been reminded yesterday, so and this morning as well. So now what? Now I have to deal with this constraint equality. So I introduce a multiplier lambda in the dual of capital X. And okay, so this is what we did, and then we arrived at the following system, the following two equalities, which are the optimality, which is the optimality system associated to the extremal problem. So find y and lambda in the capital X prime solution of this system. With again this zero term here. Okay, this problem is well posed as expected. Of course, the solution is a saddle point for a Lagrangian, and we have some estimates. So to prove that, it's very simple. And so we have to check that the bilinear form is coercive on the kernel. This is by construction, and we have to prove some surjectivity property, what is called the Hempstead constant property. There exists a delta positive such that this inequality is uniformly bounded by below respect to lambda and y. So fix again. This is a consequence of the continuity of the solution of the wave equation with respect to the source. So fix any lambda, and we have to show that this supremum is uniformly bounded by below with respect to lambda. So we take one knot in the solution of this hyperbolic equation with zero initial data. By construction, the numerator is equal to the square of the norm of lambda, and using the continuity of the solution with respect to the source, which is here minus delta lambda, well, we get this inequality. This is the constant continuity, and we get that this supremum is uniformly bounded by below with respect to lambda. So it's very simple in that case. So the problem is well posed. Another trivial remark, but useful at the level of approximation. Okay, from the first equation, we immediately see that lambda, at the optimality, solve this hyperbolic equation in the sense of transposition, and from regularity of y minus y ops, which is in L2, lambda is a weak solution of this equation. So in particular, this means that lambda is more regular than X prime is, has more regularity than what we put at the beginning. So in particular, this means that if y ops is a good data, this quantity is 0, and so lambda is 0. So if y ops is a good data, the multiplier is useless. And we just have to minimize respect to y the Lagrangian with lambda is equal to 0. If y ops is not a good data, well, okay, with some notation we can rewrite the mixed formulation as follows. And we can make an analogy with the quasi-reversibility methods introduced by Lattès and Lyons in the 60s, and used in this context recently by Klibanov and co-workers, Bourgeois and co-workers. And the quasi-reversibility methods, roughly speaking, consist to introduce for any epsilon this variational formulation. So epsilon is a Tikhonov parameter. So you have some kind of analogy. Here we have some epsilon that we have to choose correctly, and here in our case the epsilon is replaced by lambda, which is adjusted automatically. So in some sense it's easier. Okay. Okay. So. Again, another elementary remark, but important at the level of the numerical approximation. We can, okay, at the optimality, as I said, lambda solve is a weak solution of an hyperbolic equation. So, okay, let's consider this new saddle point problem, where I add to the previous Lagrangian, I add this quantity, which is at the optimality, which should be 0, for any alpha positive, non-negative, let's say. And again, this problem is well posed. We can associate, we can compute the optimality system. So this is what we get. And okay, this problem is well posed, and so the idea to do that is to add some coercivity with respect to the variable lambda. Coercivity to the problem with respect to the variable lambda. And the interest of that, okay, is that to prove the well-posedness, we do not need anymore to prove some inf-sub property, which is very useful at the level of the approximation. Okay, and okay, we can prove that this problem is well posed. This is now very simple, assuming that alpha is between 0 and 1, and then we can check that if y lambda is a saddle point of LR, then y lambda is also a saddle point for LR alpha. And from uniqueness, the two saddle points coincide. So the two formulation, the two mixed formulation leads to the same solution. Okay, so we can do that because we know that we have an optimal control problem in some sense, and we lambda solve another state equation. Okay, the two solutions coincide. Okay, the link with the controllability. Okay, we are interested in the control of minimal L2 norm, and when we use the same approach, so usually we minimize the so-called conjugate functionals with respect to the final states of an adjoint system in phi. Phi solve L star phi is equal to 0, so we can introduce a Lagrange multiplier to deal with this constraint equality. And if we do that, we get this kind of mixed formulation, which is almost the same as before, as for the inverse problem, except the difference is here on the linear functionals. Here the linear functionals depends on the data to be controlled. In our case, the linear functionals depend on the observation. And you see that for here, in order to have continuity, we need the observability inequality. And for our inverse problem, we only need the unique continuation. So this is an important remark at the level of approximation. But again, so okay, the connection is quite clear, but this means that if we have a good methods to solve this one, we have a good methods to solve the inverse problem. Another trivial remark, but important at the numerical level, we can replace the saddle point formulation by the minimization by another extremal problem involving only the variable lambda. So we can easily prove this inequality using the duality. G star star, in some sense, the dual of the mixed formulation, is defined as follow, and PR lambda is one operator from X prime into X prime, defined as follow. To any lambda, I associate this quantity in order to be in the good space, okay, because Ly is in X. And where what? Y solve this variational formulation. Okay, so take any lambda, and you can associate a unique Y solution of this equality. Well, we can associate a unique solution if and only if R here is strictly positive. You see that if R is equal to 0, this term vanish, and we do not have well-posedness. Okay, and we can check that this operator is strongly elliptic, symmetric isomorphism from X prime into X prime. Okay. Well, the boundary observation is exactly the same, assuming some unique continuation property. So now I have an observation on the boundary, and if I have some well, inequality, observability inequality, I can repeat the process. So I do not insist on that. A word on the inverse problem too. So now I want to reconstruct simultaneously the source and the solution. So I have to assuming that the source corresponding to the observation is unique. So, for instance, we can assume that f is a time function multiplied by a function in space. So I assume that sigma is known. I assume that sigma is known, and I want to reconstruct mu. And to do that, again, we need some some uniqueness result, some stability result. And among many other, we use the, well, one stability estimates done by Yamamoto and Zhang, which tell us that if Ly solve if y solve the hyperbolic equation, Ly is equal to sigma t mu x, zero initial data, I can control the h-1 norm of the spatial part of the force in terms of the observation on a part of the boundary. So this is a uniqueness result and a stability result. If this term is 0, then mu is 0, and then if mu is 0, then y is 0, since the initial data are 0. Okay, and so following the same idea, well, now I can introduce the infimum in respect to y and mu of this least square functionals, and again I add some zero term, which is useful at the numerical level. Zero term Ly minus sigma mu is equal to 0 in the appropriate functional setting. Okay, now I want to relax the fact that Ly minus sigma mu is equal to 0, so I need a generalized observability inequality. And within the same hypothesis, within this theorem, we can easily prove that we have some kind of, by superposition, we can prove that there exists a constant such that we can measure the h-1 norm of the spatial part of the force in terms of the observation and the knowledge of Ly minus sigma mu. This allows us to define this bilinear form with eta strictly positive. This one, again, using this inequality, is a scalar product, and then I can associate on y, which is a relaxed space where Ly minus sigma mu is only in L2. I can associate an Hilbert space, and then okay, I repeat the process. And I define the optimality system in y mu lambda as before. The process is exactly the same. And again, this problem is well posed. There exists a unique solution for any R non-negative. We can stabilize this system, and we can associate a dual problem where we only minimize with respect to the multiplier lambda. Okay, so what about the parabolic situation? Well, so again, I assume some observation on a small part of the domain, and I want to reconstruct the full solution. Well, a priori, the method is similar, except that, well, we know that if Ly is in L2 and if we have a control of Ly in L2 of y in L2 of small qt, then we know that we cannot control the solution at time 0. So we cannot expect to reconstruct from this information the solution at time 0. Nevertheless, we can apply the same procedure. So let go. So again, we define some extremal problem. So again, it's a least square formulation. Where now, in view of the analogy with the controllability problem, well, maybe it's a good idea to introduce some weight here and here in order to reduce or to kill the singularity of y at time 0. Okay, so take any weight, possibly such that possibly unbounded at time 0, so that rho minus 1 and rho not minus 1 will vanish at time 0 in order, okay, to kill the singularity at time 0. And okay, capital Y, as usual, is defined by completion in order to give a sense to all the term. And again, okay, again I repeat the process. I can associate an optimality system. This optimality system is well posed, etc., etc. I have some estimates, and I can prove the well posedness if I assume that R is in L infinity. Okay, let's assume that. So rho minus 1 cannot vanish at time 0. We are not able to prove that in this situation. And then, okay, assuming that the weight into consideration are bounded by the classical Karlemann weight, which appears in the Karlemann inequality for the heat equation, then I have a global estimates of y at time on the global domain, capital Qt, up to a weight which is 0 at time 0, and this is the classical Karlemann weight, in terms of the knowledge of y for the norm capital Y. Okay, so well, the F property is open if the weight rho is not in N infinity. And this is related to the general question. So in many situations, well, mainly at the level of approximation, we don't want to play with y because y again is singular at time 0, or for the controllability issue is phi. The adjoint solution is singular at time capital T. Anyway, we don't want to play with y at time 0, but we want to multiply y by some weight which vanish at time 0. So again, in order to reduce or kill the singularity of the solution. And the problem then, okay, we replace y by z multiplied by rho naught in the equation. And to prove the F property, we would need to have an L2 estimate of z in terms of the L2 norm of lambda naught, which is this quantity. And in the general case of interest, if we take at the limit the Karlemann weight, so rho is exponential beta of t, and rho naught, as you know, rho multiplied by a power of t. And if we compute, if we expand that, we get another heat equation with some degenerate weight in time. Well, and I don't know how to, for this kind of equation, how to have some estimates in L2 of z in term of the source term. So, if you have some idea, you are welcome on that. This is a crucial question, which appear as well in the approximation for control problem. And again, we can stabilize the equation, introduce some alpha term which is 0 at the optimality, in order to get rid of the F sup property, which is very useful at the discrete level. And okay, and another okay. Again, we can consider the minimization of G star over lambda exactly as before. Another thing, again for a numerical purpose, it's very useful to replace the heat equation by a first order system. So now we have involving the flux. Gradient nabla of gradient of y. So now I replace the heat equation by two equality. Well, this first order system is well posed. We have weak solution. And okay, I repeat the problem. Inverse problem is now okay. I have an observation on small qt, and I want to recover y everywhere, and now p the flux. Okay, so I use the same method. So I minimize the least square functionals. U is again defined by completion, and I have to satisfy now n plus 1 constraint equality if I am in Rn. Okay, I define, okay, U is defined by completion as usual, eta 1, eta 2, in order to have a scalar product. I can associate, okay, a mix formulation. So now I have more multiplier. I have a multiplier lambda in L2 for the first, and another one which is vectorial mu. And okay, the idea is the same. This problem is well posed, etc., etc. And now, if I want to have a global estimate, well, I need to find the literature some global estimates of the solution from the knowledge of Y and the flux. So we use some well, global Kalman estimates due to Imanivulov, Puel, and Yamamoto, which tell us that if Y is solved, basically Ly is equal to G plus the divergence of capital G, then we have an estimate, a global estimate, up to some weight, vanishing at time 0, in terms of up to some weight, the L2 norm of G and the L2 norm of small g, plus, of course, the observation on small qt. So this one is the Kalman estimates we need because the solution Y satisfy these equalities with the two definitions I introduced before. So if you have a control, you have an information of that and of that in L2, then you have a global estimate of Y in L2 on capital Qt. So this is the stability estimates we need and we used. Okay. Now, what about the finite dimensional approximation? So few words only, and to fix I did a boundary observation for the hyperbolic case. So we just have to replace the mixed formulation. Well, to replace in the mixed formulation Y by YH and lambda by lambda H, and lambda YH is in a finite dimensional space. In ZH included in Z, small lambda H is in capital lambda H, which is a conformal approximation of L2, the set of lambda. And that's all. This is all what we have to do. And we can check easily that if R is strictly positive, AR is coercive on the full space Z, so a fortiori on ZH. And if we assume that the discrete M-sub property, so there exists a delta, such that this quantity is uniformly bounded by below respect to H, then the literature tells us that this problem is well posed. There exists for any H a unique YH and a unique lambda H. Okay, and then, so we need, you see that we really need R strictly positive in order to have coercivity. And then using, okay, classical estimates from the literature, we can estimate the error, so Y minus YH, in terms of the distance, in terms of this distance, for the distance of the solution to ZH, and this distance, and well, you see that delta H appears here. Okay, so now if I want to go further, I have to define ZH and lambda H in order to compute this distance and in order to compute delta H. So for second order formulation, essentially we work in H2, so we need a C1 approximation, so we need C1 finite element. And for the multiplier, essentially we need the continuous element. So one example of estimates with one such approximation, I don't want to give too much details, but with one element which is C1 in space and time, and okay, I can give more information on the error in terms of HK, and K depends appear in the regularity of the solution. Okay, and anyway, so I have this kind of estimates, and and now, okay, writing the observability inequality for y minus yh, I can deduce a global estimate on L2 of capital Qt in terms of the error on Z, which is given here. And then, so I have a global estimate of the error y minus yh. So it's simple. Another thing, well, we are not able to compute delta H. Delta H, because the constraint is complicated, the space of approximation is very complicated. We cannot evaluate delta H. We are not able to do that. But fortunately, well, we can approximate numerically delta H, and in that case, we get that delta H, well, asymptotically, when H goes to 0, behave like H divided by the square root of R. So as soon as R is strictly positive, this one is strictly positive, and the problem is well posed. And so we plug this in the previous estimate, and we get some bounded of this error in terms of R and HK. So I put eta is equal to R here, and okay, we can optimize this quantity with respect to R in order to minimize this quantity with respect to R. So it depends if you want to optimize the distance, the error on Y or the error on lambda. But okay. And now, okay, if you are not convinced by that, okay, let's use the stabilized mixed formulation with this alpha in 0, 1. So now I don't have to, I don't have anymore to prove some discrete absolute property, which is so difficult. And I use the equivalence between the two mixed formulation, and I get some error estimates. Okay. Well, one word about the heat equation. The situation is the same. Huh? So a C1 approximation is for Y, and a Q1 approximation for well, a C0 approximation for the multiplier, and we compute numerically that delta H behave like 1 over the square of R. So as soon as R is strictly positive, this one is strictly positive, and we get the well-posedness, and then we get some global estimates with a weight, of course, vanishing at time 0 in terms of H. Now the first order formulation, well, we compute, and so using only a continuous finite element, we compute that delta H for any H is equal to 0. And we can prove afterward that, well, the kernel of B star is not empty. It's not reduced to 0. And so for any H, this problem is ill-posed, so we cannot use this formulation. So in that case, we really need to use the stabilization formulation. Introduce this alpha between 0 and 1. And we get some estimates. Okay, few experiments. Well, we did many experiments, and so very few. I don't want to discuss all that with care, and we did many experiments, and well, it works quite well as expected. Okay, so okay, this is the hyperbolic situation. N is equal to 1 in 1D. This is the data. This is the initial data from which I compute one solution, okay, in order to compare with the approximation. Well, we approximate, we assume some observation on 0.1, 0.3, and well, we check that the relative error, the relative global error goes to 0 when H goes to 0. So the method is consistent as expected. And this is the difference between the exact and the approximate solution. And on the right, this is the multiplier, which solves an hyperbolic equation, and which is a control solution of the hyperbolic equation. Well, just this picture to highlight that this space-time formulation is well adapted to well, mesh adaptation. So you start with a coarse mesh, and then you see that the adaptation capture the singularity of the solution generated by the initial condition. And so, okay, this is the reconstruct state. Well, another picture to show you that we can do that in 2D as well, and as well the relative error goes to 0 when h goes to 0. Another picture, and okay. And okay, I don't want to discuss. Okay, another one. A boundary case. So we assume that we know the normal derivative here on the right part, and the t is large enough, and okay, we are able to reconstruct the solution, and in particular the initial data. So this is the exact one and the approximate one. And okay, we did some experiments to reconstruct the source as well. Okay, it's and I would like to end with the heat equation and a comparison with the standard methods. So the standard methods, as explained at the beginning, you minimize the least square functionals with respect, well, the discrete least square functionals with respect to the initial data. And possibly you add a Tikhonov regularization in order to be sure that the initial data be in L2. So this is the classical methods used by 99% of the people. The second option is to solve the mixed formulation, and the third option is to minimize with respect to lambda h G star star. And you see that, okay, this is what. So the solution is built using this initial data, sinus pi x power 20. So it's a 1D problem. Capital omega is 0,1, and I assume my observation on 0.7, 0.8. T is equal to 1/2. So with the classical methods, this is y minus yh. So you see that it's, well, the difference is for t large, far away from t is equal to 0, the error is small, and as expected at t is equal to 0, you cannot control the difference, but it works quite well, and this is what we get when we minimize G star star, and again, the relative error with the same mesh is very close. And this is the restriction at time 0. So in red is the exact initial data, sinus px power 20, and in blue this is what we get for the classical methods and for the variational, let's say, variational methods. So well, you can compare the two methods. It's okay in both cases. But the main difference, well, is on the so it's two iterative methods, and the main difference is the number of iterations. So in the two cases we use the conjugate gradient methods. So in the standard case, of course, when h goes to 0, when h is small enough, the number of iterations to which convergence increase. So you see about 400 iterations to get 10 minus 10 relative error. And when you minimize respect to lambda h, z star star, you get a convergence in 4 iterations. So this one is much more robust. We can prove that the conditioning number of the underlying operator goes to 1 when h goes to 0. So this is the main difference, I think. So maybe it could be interesting to use this kind of methods. So to conclude, okay, we can use mixed formulation, space-time formulation to reconstruct solution and source. Well, the method seems robust. We can prove some strong convergence result, possibly using a stabilization technique. Well, there is no need to prove uniform discrete observability estimates, which is so difficult in general. Well, and we observe we should make much more experiments, but we observe that the minimization of G star star with respect to lambda is very robust and fast. And the approach is, well, we can do that for any observable system. And now the perspective, which is now in progress, is to reconstruct potentials and coefficients. Okay, I stop. Thank you.
Are there questions?
That's fine. So, did you experiment with the effect of noise on your data?
If I experiment with?
With the effect of noise on your data?
No, but this is insensitive to noise. If you assume some Lipschitz estimates, if you perturb a bit the data, you will perturb only a bit the solution. So yes, we experiment, but it's useless to experiment. It's insensitive.
Okay. And the second question I would have is, I'm not sure. Did you show what? Maybe I misread.
Yeah.
But you said you are sin pi x to the power 20.
Yes.
So can you expand on that? I mean, this is a sort of a very high signal you're trying to find, right? Or,
yes, we can expand it. Yes.
what happens if you just leave out the power 20?
What if I take?
Just take sin pi x and you do the same computation.
Yes.
Do you get the same type of phenomena, or is it?
Yes, it's
a little bit of an extreme.
It's easier. It's sinus pi x. It's easier. Yes. The first mode.
Yeah. But how does your computer see the power 20? Is that?
No, but you can expand. You have 10 terms. I think if you expand the sinus pi x to the power 20. Okay. Yes, you can expand it. Yes, of sinus px, sinus 3px, yeah.
And if you allow me a last question, which is, you are usually penalizing or realizing your state equation in a certain norm, right? Yes. What would happen if you take a different norm? I mean, the norm has a lot of effect on the numerical realization because you need to realize all these inner products. What's the effect of the specific norm you choose?
You mean what? You mean the L2 norm? Well, the choice.
Yeah, for example, you took the L2 norm. You took at another place. You took the X. I think you called it X, which was the image norm.
The choice of the norm is driven by the estimates, the Kahneman estimates you have at disposal.
So this is, you're saying they are always the best norm with respect to the Kahneman estimates, from my understanding.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? If not, let's thank Arnaud again.
Merci.